New intro music, new intro, new season. I'm your host, Marcus Flowers, aka Flo, aka Call Me What You Want. Just don't call me lazy. And of course, I'm joined by today my co-host.
Y'all know who it is. He who shall not be named. The one who stands above all others, Metro Meta.
Yes, and we're not gonna tell y'all why we've been away. We're just gonna get right to it. Today was the first day of E3. Morgan, tell us what E3 stands for.
Electronic environment. I don't know.
Okay, cool. So basically,
E3.
we had two presentations so far today. One by Ubisoft and the other by Gearbox. And
going into E3, let's pregame this.
Okay.
What did you going from these two people? What did you expect from them going in, and what did they need to do going into their presentation?
So I feel like Ubisoft has been showing the same type of content for 5 years with no real result. It's just been the same things over and over and over again. And so my hope was that with an entire year of them having to like plan and create new ideas and new innovations and new video games, I thought that this year would have been different. But of course, it was the same old with Ubisoft. We got a few other things, but not much with Gearbox. I knew for sure they would have been heavy-handed with Borderlands 3s, and of course, they have the expanded Borderlands universe, which is just crazy to even think about now. Just like looking back on this series, but crazy to think about Borderlands as an expanded universe. And so with that, I was just really looking forward to something fresh, something new with Gearbox, and I feel like I got that from them.
All right. So for me going in, Ubisoft, obviously coming off the heels of a rough year last year, they did have a lot of potential. Ubisoft has a lot of potential. They do have those sleeper hits of games somewhere in their library. Going into this, there were a few things that we knew going in, like Rainbow Six Extraction going into E3. We knew that game. They had to change the title from Quarantine for obvious reasons. But the thing that I wanted the most from Ubisoft is they have. I've always like tried to think of developers as their like what's their skill, what are they best at, and I always wanted Ubisoft to lean into their skill of being able to they're sort of like really good tour guides. They're really good at building and making those fantastic worlds with like the Assassin's Creed series and all that. And I want them to lean in more to that. And we got it a little bit now with Valhalla. It's interesting to see that, and we can talk about this more when we get to Valhalla. The disconnect I think we're sort of seeing between the gaming community and the actual games they're playing, because people constantly are like, we don't like this, we don't like your open world design, you need to stop, you need to change it. And yet they went on stage and said Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the biggest Assassin's Creed game ever.
Yeah, and it just that just goes a lot to show that like some of the loudest voices online aren't necessarily the majority. It's like the large minority. It's just when you have like the subsection of like gamers or just content consumers, and they're like, yo, we need this, and it rings so loud, you're thinking, oh man, this is a big deal, but in actuality, it's not a big deal, and it falls on them to be like, yo, this wasn't a big deal, and it falls on the companies to say, hey, to differentiate between reality and fantasy, and I feel like Ubisoft really hit that on the head.
Yeah, and I think we'll start out with Quarantine, Marcus. That's for those of you guys who don't know, Rainbow Six Quarantine. The
Rainbow Six Siege Extraction. Yeah, so Rainbow Siege 6 Extraction, it's another iteration of the Rainbow Siege.
series. For those of you guys who don't know, they're tactical shooters, so they tend to be based on like looking around corners and all of that. This to be applying it into more otherworldly. There's like these aliens that sort of evolved on Earth that you're attacking and taking, and it's
The
all
Ar-
sort of a
the
legacy type.
Archians, the Archians.
Yeah, the Artians.
Yes.
It's sort of a legacy title in the fact that you're gonna have sieges or siege. I don't know what they're called, siege characters from around the series, which again, banking on a bit of nostalgia is always good. Ubisoft doesn't lean into that as much. Um, and it does also have an interesting mechanic where if you die, that person, that player, that siege is it stays locked away, so you can't play them anymore until you go back and get them.
Right. I think that is a very interesting development as well. One of my favorite things was the sprawl. And I just find the sprawl just truly interesting because it connects all Archians together, but it slows down operators. And I just think that is just so interesting in these type of open world video games, and how you have added obstacles that necessarily shouldn't be there, but just add a certain wrinkle to you. And it's kind of like a compass or a map to know where the enemy is.
Yeah, always interesting to deal with that sort of mechanic of slowing you down. And again, going back to the tactical roots of Rainbow Six, you having to make sure to get rid of that before you engage your enemy and always being wary of it, I think is really good. Let's do a let's do for our guessing game, pick or not pick. Would you pick up this game?
I think I would pick it up. I wouldn't pick it up like on release day, but eventually down the line, once the sale happens, is probably when I would be most open to purchase a game like this.
I don't. This isn't a pickup for me. I've never liked zombie games. I'm not really a Siege player, but it, it's good for the Siege community, and that's a
Right.
game that deserves a lot more spotlight, considering how big and how welcoming they can be compared to other communities. All right.
No, for sure, for sure.
Next
Next
up on the docket.
next up that Ubisoft premiered was Rocksmith Plus, and it is basically a guitar game that's been around for about 20 years, and it's an interesting component because now it is a live app that you can connect to your console, your phone, your laptop, and it's basically it teaches you guitar, but it adapts to all levels. It has personalized recommendations. It has community help videos, and Rocksmith Plus is a subscription service for real-time feedback. So overall, as a person who's not really a guitar player, I totally get it, but it's not for me. But I feel like Ubisoft is banking on this type of community building gaming where necessarily the game isn't there all the way when it just comes to functions, but if the community is there and you can build off of that community, and that is going to be the key for Ubisoft moving forward.
I think this is Ubisoft always has these random things that they're working on. They're sort of Nintendo s. They're like a watered down Western version of Nintendo, where every once in a while they come out with something, and you're like, "Well, who asked for that?" And it kind of works, and people like it. I think this again is a great idea. It's more of them going into the subscription model, but I would be more open to them using this technology for like other instruments. And I don't know how easily they can be able to do that, but I think this is a good move for the music community in general.
No, for sure, for sure. Definitely. And another thing that's just building on, like what I said, building on community is Riders Republic. Well, actually, before that, we skipped it. Would you be picking up Rocksmith Plus?
No, I don't have a guitar.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not a fan. I don't want to say I'm not a fan, but Rocksmith Plus is not for me. Next up is Riders Republic. It comes in September, and it's basically, let me see my notes. It is oh, yep. No, all I have is that it is That's all I have. It comes in September. I didn't really get much for this because I was busy. But what did you take away from Riders Republic?
It's interesting. It's definitely a child of Steep, but it seems a bit more like arcadey, which I think is good.
Right.
It's for the community that it's going to have. They're gonna love it, but everyone else, they're just gonna forget it a week after it comes out. Honestly,
No, for sure, for sure. So lastly, would you pick up Riders Republic?
not on starting price. That's sale.
So yeah, no, definitely if there's like a Christmas or holiday sale where it's like 70% off, I definitely would check that out. Rainbow Siege. Next up is Rainbow Six Siege with crossplay coming June 30th for PC and in early 2022 for console. And they have added a extra content with the creation of Thunderbird, which is arriving. Which also arrives in Rainbow Siege later this year. How did you feel? Well, first, how did you feel about the story of Thunderbird? I know you are a big fan of female protagonists. So how did you react to Thunderbird?
I thought it was really good. A really nice short, and I don't know if Rainbow Six Siege is one of the because I feel like Ubisoft and Netflix have cut a deal because they have the Splinter Cell, and I heard of like two other animated shows that they're doing, and so I don't know if Ubisoft has cut a deal to like have Netflix make more of those. I'm hoping they do, especially in the like Overwatchy style. But for me, this crossplay, it's interesting mainly because just last week we got the announcement that Overwatch is getting crossplay.
Right.
Play between consoles has been held up mainly by Sony for a couple of years now. People have been complaining. And so now hearing that a lot of the games here at this showcase are now starting to get this crossplay, I'm wondering, did somebody figure out a deal that Sony likes for crossplay?
Probably it has to be that way because Sony is really, when it comes to video games, Sony is king, and so when you're at the top of the mountain, you get to dictate the terms, and so of course you got to bow to the sword. But when you do that, you set the terms, you set the limitations, you set the standard of what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. And so I feel like there is a deal because with a lot of these cross-play announcements, I feel like there was a solid deal landed by at least Ubisoft that says, hey, this is the percentage or this is what we give you in return for crossplay. And I feel like this is just the next step when it comes to gaming. First, we have crossplay, and then next up is the explosion of mobile gaming.
Well, the mobile gaming been exploding. I
Yeah,
think
no, I think it's going to
definitely
be bigger.
we're getting closer to those levels of like Asia and things like that.
No, for sure.
I am interested to see if with this because cross progression I think is a bit more of a sticking point for me because I have my old Overwatch game which I think I sold, but I think the stuff's on my account. I'd love to cross progress that stuff straight into my new Overwatch account whenever I pick that and dust that off. Probably when Overwatch 2 drops. But I'm wondering if with this now opening up with cross progression become another standard feature in most games.
Um, I think it is going to be the industry standard moving forward, especially once we get further and further into this next generation of consoles. I feel like the biggest obstacle right now is like, of course, we see with like crossplay is easier through PC to PC and console to console, but I feel like the next step will be PC to console, and I feel like we're going to get that eventually. But I feel like the next step is going to be industry standard, which is crossplay.
All right.
No, quick question. When I have three quick questions for you. When was the last time you played Overwatch? Will you be buying Overwatch 2? And have you tried Overwatch on the Nintendo Switch?
So I haven't tried Overwatch on the Nintendo Switch. Console's not advisable. Last time I played Overwatch, before quarantine, so maybe like 2 years ago. I do think I'm gonna get Overwatch 2. I left before Echo came, that the white one before she was dropped. I do want to get Overwatch 2. I'm liking the redesigns. They're not doing much to them, but I like them enough. Diva hasn't received hers yet though, so I'm gonna need that expeditiously. I kind of want to taste it right now just to see what it feels like before Overwatch 2, but yeah.
Okay, and we are back. We have some technical difficulties. So this was the part of.
So this was like their update.
This was the part of the Ubisoft presentation where I almost turned my laptop off and threw it out the window because it was just the update about or the updates of games such as Mirage for Honor, Trackmania, Brawlhalla with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Crew 2, and Return to Watch Dogs. And if this wasn't a gift, if this wasn't a gift as well, they said Ghost Recon Breakpoint is celebrating its 20th anniversary with surprises coming soon. So that just from a consumer standpoint, I was very disappointed with that part of the presentation just because they talked about the updates with Brawlhalla, Mirage for Honor, Crew 2, Return to Watch Dogs, but with Ghost Recon, as a fan who's been playing that game for about 20 years, and you're like, okay, we're going to have updates on this, but it's gonna be in the future. Like, you couldn't give me at least one thing, especially on this year when it's celebrating its 20th anniversary, like something of that magnitude. You shouldn't just say surprise. You have to. I feel like you have to support it with at least one thing. Am I wrong in that statement?
My thing with this section was the big part for Watch Dogs Legacy. They were like, "Oh, Aiden Pierce is coming back. Aiden Pierce and Wrench from Watch Dogs 2." I'm like, "Where's Marcus? Not Marcus from the second game. The best protect, Aiden Pierce." They try and talk up Aiden Pierce in every single Watch Dogs game, like the iconic Aiden Pierce. He was boring. Nobody actually likes that man. Like, why are we perpetuating this? Anyway, after their little flash mob of please keep playing the games we already sold you, they talk about Valhalla. Now,
no. They talked about how can you, a black man, skip over another black person? I feel like that's racist. I feel like you did not want to give Todrick Hall their props because Todrick Hall, a black person, obviously, who has a smash song, is not only working with Just Dance, he is collaborating with Just Dance to have exclusive content, and on top of that, he will have the remix of his song be the soundtrack dance of Just Dance when it releases in 2022. Give it up for that black man.
Just Dance. I like the video. I miss having the in-person Just Dances. It was the one part of the Ubisoft thing where everyone was looking forward to what it would look like.
Oh, but and now, well, go ahead.
How do you feel about Just Dance for the first time now not being on the Wii?
Do people still play the Wii? Like,
people still pay the Wii.
Like, I don't know. The Wii don't be ringing the bells, man.
Just Dance.
We ain't got no release around here.
released on the Wii. This is going to be the very first Just Dance, maybe ever, I don't know, to not be on the Wii.
I'll tell you this: the Wii don't be ringing bells over here, so I don't even care about that. See, you talk about the Wii as a classic, but if something is a classic, it's gonna be remembered. I don't care about the Wii. The Wii actually was Nintendo's worst system ever.
Oh, you do not know enough about Nintendo to
I
say
do.
that.
I do.
The Virtual Boy, the Wii U.
The Virtual Boy led to the Game Boy. So what you
No,
mean?
I mean the Virtual Boy, the VR one that had red and black screens.
Wii was still worse than that.
Wii U was worse than the Wii. The Wii is one of the best-selling consoles ever.
Yeah, Nintendo's always gonna sell. It doesn't mean I can't critique them. We're talking about numbers. Are we talking about content? The content of the Wii was not there.
It had one of the largest libraries. It had amazing games.
Like, give me your top 5 Wii games right now. Top 5.
Wii Sports Resort was really good.
Oh, but
Xenoblade was on there. That was really good. All right. Then you had, of course, the traditional Wii. You had Mario Kart was good on there. Skyward Sword was good on there. That's 5 already.
That was 4.
No, Wii Resort, Wii Sports, original Xenoblade, and then you had Skyward Sword, and then what was the 4th? The 5th?
Exactly.
No, I forgot. Oh, Mario Kart. Yeah. Get out of here.
Nah, you can't say Mario Kart. Okay, if I wanted to play Mario Kart,
they were system.
If I wanted to play Mario Kart, I would play it on my Nintendo Switch like a real person.
Not when it's not out.
Nah, but it is out, and I have it, and I'll play it on my Switch like a dignified individual. When's the last time you played a Wii?
I don't know. We never owned one.
All right, exactly. It's one of the best consoles ever. You ain't never owned one. So how?
Yeah, but that's because we didn't buy one because we didn't have the money.
Nah, we had the money. You just didn't want it. Anyway, so let's get to the part where you really wanted to get to, Assassin's Creed.
Now I have friends who really like AC, and everybody complains about like map design and all that, but I'm just saying, best-selling AC game ever. That just tells me that whatever they're selling, people clearly like.
Yes, we talked about this earlier in the pod about how there's an online voice, and if companies listen to that, it may hurt their overall end goal. And it seems like with Ubisoft, they didn't listen to that, and they kept pushing forward. And what was it? It was like 300 million raids or something crazy like that. Like you can't beat that.
My question is, it seems like Ubisoft, clearly they've said it since AC Origins, and they've kept that energy while AC Odyssey. They don't want to have Assassin's Creed be yearly, which is good. So the cutoff to that is they're adding more on. They're having this. My 2 questions for you is, 1, how many years do you think they're going to support Odyssey? And 2, where do you think they're going to go next, and where do you want them to go next?
So I say 2 years for Odyssey with support. Where would I want them to go next? Did they already go to Africa?
They went to Egypt.
That ain't the same. I want them to follow the journey of Mansa Musa and his journey to become the richest person in the world, and all of his conquests, and his journey from the bottom of Africa all the way to Egypt. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see a Haitian revolution one, because Haitians are the only melanin people who won their revolution. So I would like to. Oh yeah, Nigeria too. I would like to see that. Where else? I would say America, but it's still going on, and we don't know where the end goal is with that.
Well, it's not always about the revolution. I think there's interesting time periods that they could go to. My dream time periods would probably be, I would honestly like a Civil War one, just because it'd be interesting to see like Harriet Tubman and all of that. But honestly, I feel like they've spent so much time in like the past, and like the best critical choice role for them would be, you would say, Japan, but like we just had Ghost of Tsushima, and they're gonna be measured up to Ghost of Tsushima.
And they
And
don't want that.
not to knock Ubisoft, but they're not gonna put in the same amount of effort and energy as Ghost of Tsushima. I would say if I was them, I would go big, go bold, just pick World War II. And just because they already changed up the combat so much, how do we make assassins work in a more modern day?
And not just World War II, I would definitely focus on the Soviet Union and how the Soviet Union was one of the countries that helped free the Jewish people in World War II for liberation. And you would have a character from the Soviet Union infiltrate and do all of those things. Like, that's what I would like to see. But next up, this was pretty intense. The trailer, at least, Far Cry 6.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was watching the trailer, I was like, yo, that's wild. But like, I get it, and I don't know if I would play it, but it looks very appetizing.
Well, Far Cry has always like patted themselves, and they even mentioned this in the stream. The best part of a Far Cry game is the villain. That's what everybody shows up for.
And I think this villain is very strong, and we see just from the way he carries himself and his value on family and legacy, and how everything happens for a reason and things just need to be done.
Yeah, I am interested to see if they can get this villain to be as good as some of them. Because like the first one they showed, Voss from like Far Cry 3, he's one of the most iconic video game villains ever. His quote on insanity is what they constantly use on the internet to define themselves. The Joker himself has used that quote. And so it will be interesting to see if they're able to, because they kind of have this bar that they need to climb. I think the thing that's helping them more in this cycle is, we saw with Far Cry 5, and they're like, oh, let's put it in the heartland of America. We're dealing with the religious cult in the middle of Trump days, and everyone was like, well, you're making a message, aren't you? And they're like, no, this is not political. And they kept saying that, even though everything in their game clearly looked political. And I think that sort of hurt them, because they had a line they were trying not to cross. But moving into this cycle, the director just flat out came out, I was like, look, it's political. I mean, come on. We got a South American country ruled by a dictator trying to get revolution. We can't get around it. The CIA shot Tupac. And so I think moving into this cycle with them acknowledging that, look, this is going to get political, they can really build up this villain way more than they could the last one.
No, for sure. So would you, we haven't done it for any of these games. Would you cop Far Cry 6?
Nah. If I was going to get into Far Cry, I would have done it with 5.
Yeah.
That's how I'm telling myself now.
Okay. Next up, something you were very excited about. Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
So Kingdom Battler, I do have it. I never finished it, but I played a little bit of it. It was sort of like a weird thing to like even happen. Like, people were mystified that, one, Nintendo would give over just the rights to make a Mario game to Ubisoft, and 2, that they nailed it so bad. Like, if you look at that game, it looks like it was in-house developed by Nintendo. And 3, that they gave Mario a gun, and they doubled his gun in this third one. And so with the first one, I feel like it was really good, but it does seem like they sort of held back, and they were like, all right, kid friendly, stick to the values of a tactics game, and add in a bit of fun, follow the path. But with this one, it really seems like they were like, all right, Nintendo's cool with us. We know this sells. Let's go crazy with it. Because they got worlds. They got us in space. They're making their own original characters now. It really looks like they were like, give me the mic right now. They're talking about, we're going to advance and change how people make tactics games, not Mario games, not just our games, all of them. They're like, we about to change the game. And so I feel like that is going to be something that really drives this game to being even more popular, because it was already popular, but like this one, I feel like people are going to be like, all right, cool. And for me, what that opens up is I want them and Ubisoft in general to be working with other Nintendo franchises, because they have the trust now. They're like, all right, you know how to make this. What else can we do? What other mix-ups can we get? And I think that will open up to get more diverse games into Ubisoft's monthly lineup. So it's not just a gun game, and maybe a For Honor. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling with it. What about you?
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't really have the criticisms as you. I do like how they toned it down for kids, because Mario with the gun is pretty intense and crazy. But lastly, would you cop this game or not?
I might get it. It's gonna depend on the story, but I'd probably get it if I have the money.
Yeah, no, same.
Let's talk Showtopper.
Huh?
The Showstopper. Just one more thing. The last game,
Which was
Avatar, Frontier of Pandora. That was the last game, right?
Yep. This is all you, and I will bounce it off. I'll just bounce off of you.
So a few things we learned about Avatar afterwards was it's going to be first person. Of course, it's open world. Standalone story, and you're playing as a Na'vi. Thank you. Nobody wants to go to the Avatar and play as a human. Nobody does. So Avatar, there's this weird ideal online where people are like, well, Avatar was big, but like it wasn't that good. Why does it have like this massive like money into it? And we're getting like 5 or 6 different Avatar movies. I always liked the world of Avatar. I stand by the fact that world is interesting, and that's why I think this game is going to be somewhat interesting. Is it'll be fun to explore that world in a different story, just to get learn more about the Na'vi, learn more about the world and the creatures there. I think that will be interesting. I'm not as interested in the movies.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm on the opposite end. Like, I don't care. I didn't care for Avatar when it came out. I feel like it was too long. I still feel that way. I feel like the games will reflect that. I also feel like it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Well, this does come out of sacrifice, because there are like several projects that didn't make it to the show. So off my list, Prince of Persia, they off the bat said that they weren't going to be there. They're rehauling it after the criticisms they received, which is good. Another game that didn't make it, Skull and Bone. I don't know if you remember this, Marcus. It was a few years ago. It was their like ship battle game, and I don't know if that ever got turned into like early access or something, but that wasn't at the show. The one game that I want to hear more about, Beyond Good and Evil. That was like their Cyberpunk at when it debuted. And then they had some difficulties with the director, and by difficulties I mean he was abusive and bad. And then we haven't heard anything from it. And it's one of those games where oftentimes they're like, yeah, we're working on it, and then we don't hear anything for 20 years. So I would just like to know where that game is. If there's a good chance they might silently just cancel that game, but I want to know what happens with it.
No, for sure. I completely agree with you. Last thing, Ubisoft Plus, 60% off for 3 months. So let me get this straight. You already want me to subscribe to Rocksmith Plus. Now you want me to subscribe to Ubisoft Plus on top of Xbox. What's the Xbox service? What's
Game Pass?
Xbox Game Pass on top of PS Plus, on top of what's the other PlayStation thing? After Plus, it's like 2 of them.
PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now.
Yes. So you want me to pay for all of that and play for your Ubisoft Plus. Let me get this. Let me tell you right now, I'm not paying for Ubisoft Plus. The presentation, I really enjoyed it. They had a few good games that I do want to try out. I would judge it on like a 7 out of 10. What about you?
Good 6. They had 2 good announcements. Give it a 5.
Right.
Moving on to
Gear. Hold up. Give me 1 second.
Moving on to Gearbox Software, they had their E3 show.
Oh, wait. Don't say moving on because I'm gonna edit this. Just start off with Gearbox.
So Gearbox's show.
I'm gonna jump in right here. I'm gonna just take the lead with this one. So Gearbox. So of course I haven't watched E3 in about 3 years, and so I was like, it's always the same thing. It's, hey, here's our founder. Hey, here's our company. Hey, here's the games. Hey, here's the exclusive content. Hey, here's what you can be looking forward to. See you later. But I really liked what Gearbox did when they gave a unique intro with Gearbox University. And not only that, they incorporated it into this new fashion, this new work where they're showing the Borderlands movie set, and they're taking us behind the scenes there, and they're weaving that in between the new games, in between the Gearbox University, and they're showing us a unique perspective that I necessarily was not familiar with. Morgan, you have been a fan of video games longer than myself. What did you feel about the Gearbox presentation?
Off the bat, they started with the movie, and the minute they're like, let's go look at the Borderlands movie, I was like, you're losing people. Nobody cares. We skipped the movies in the Ubiforward in our review because nobody cares about the movies at E3. And you can tell in the chat, they're like, movies, nobody wants to hear about these movies. I would have cut that. Upload that afterwards or put it in the middle right before you want to bore them so you can put something interesting. But having that bookending, it's pretty interesting. I mean, we've seen Nintendo sort of does it with their direct layout. PlayStation does it as well. So to a certain extent, they don't frame it as a theme, but it's very Borderlands-y. It's very Gearbox-y, where it's like, oh, we're good at comedy, but they're not really good at comedy. I do feel it was interesting to have them start with their biggest game. I also found it difficult to like follow along because like there were several. It felt to me like they had 3 games, and they just kept mentioning them in different orders.
Yeah, no, definitely. The lack of games was glaring, and but I will say, just like you said, you didn't like it. And of course, you were in the chat and you saw people who didn't like the game, the video, the movie. But I must say, just from like a content creation type of point of view, like this was very bold of them to do. Like you have to at least admit that. Like they didn't have to weave in the cheesy university intro tape. They didn't have to weave that into like the vlog hemisphere, into the game, and then back into the vlog, into the university. Like you have to admit that. And another thing that I really thought was interesting and something that normal other video game companies haven't done was trying to make a connection generational. Like a lot of times with with just gaming, it's like the latest, the newest. This is what we did. This is what we did 2 years ago. This is what we're doing for the year up. But Gearbox said, hey, this was an actress in this movie who your parents or grandparents are familiar with. And it relates to this. It relates to our current game that you can play right now in this way. And this is how it relates to the movie. And I feel like that is how you build generational fans, where you have the grandmother who talks about the movie, you have the son who talks about the game, and then you have the children who are going to have the experience of the game and the movie as well. And so I feel like that was just a very great segue to loop everything together. I was just very highly impressed with Gearbox and the way they merged everything together.
Yeah, I was kind of tired by then. I honestly, I wasn't that impressed. I've never been that impressed with Gearbox. Most years they don't even have an E3. They show up at others, and I think it was kind of bold for them to be like, "Look, the big dogs are gone. We're a big publisher now. We get our own E3." And I'm like, "No, y'all got 3 games. Sit back down." Okay, they got that giant game. That Commander game, I felt like they announced like 3 times, and it might have been 3 different games, and I just didn't notice. And then they had their Borderlands fantasy sequel, which I think it's a great idea. I'm interested to see what it is. I've always tried to get into Borderlands, but I never was able to, and I'm just like, maybe this might get me into it. Honestly, moving forward with Gearbox, for me in general, unless they announce, and Randy can hear me right now, a sequel to Battleborns, I really don't care what their company is doing. Until they run me my Battleborns sequel, I don't care. That's all I showed up for that show for. That is all I care about.
One of the interesting games that caught my attention from Gearbox was Tiny Tina's Wonderland.
Yeah,
and it is a standalone game that is based off of the Borderlands universe, and you don't have to play it. And I feel like something like Tiny Tina's created by a company like 2K, I feel like it'll be great for younger gamers and get them into the Borderlands universe.
It will not, because it's still Borderlands. They're still going to be making poop and like dick jokes.
But okay, but it's a different universe. It's a
different universe.
What I'm saying,
developer, they don't change their humor.
But you have already counted them out. But let's say if you're playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland and those jokes aren't there, and they're geared towards younger audiences and younger gamers, and that is how you build those fans who are like, hey, I remember playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland when I was 11 and 12. Let me see the follow-up when I'm 15 and 16 and moving forward. And that's how you build those type of fans.
That might be how you build those type of fans, but that's not what Gearbox does. And they don't really need to build on more fans. They have the Borderlands franchise.
But you have to. There's a point at every company where you have to dare to be great. Where you're like, okay, we're at this plateau. How can we move? Do we want to stay at this plateau, or do we want to move higher? And I feel like what Gearbox is doing, like, okay, let's dare to be great. We already have this hit series with Borderlands. Let's build off of that momentum. And let's get something popping with this whole expanded universe.
Yeah, and they've been trying to do that. That's where Battleborn came from, and that flopped horribly.
Yeah, and I just feel like the promotion there wasn't there for Battleborn. But I feel like with Tina's Wonderland, I feel like this could be the change. Lastly, Kevin Hart was wearing stilts.
What?
And I was like, because he's playing Roland, and so in the upcoming Borderlands movie,
back to the movie, I immediately clicked out.
He did the typical Kevin Hart. It's an honor to be here. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, no, that was it. What would you give the Gearbox presentation?
3 out of 10. Try better next year.
Okay, that's kind of harsh. I liked it. I give it a 7 out of 10. But yes, no, that is it for our day one E3 reactions. Make sure you are following us everywhere. Make sure you're following the brand at 26 in Glencoe Media Network on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you're following me on all social media at Flow My Hero. Make sure you're following Metro Meta on all social media at Metro Meta 26. And until next time, peace.
See ya.